My name is Isla Rennick. I was born a mistake. Not metaphorically. I mean that literally. I grew up in the rusted-out corners of Belridge, a forgotten industrial town that smells like cold steel and lost hope. They said my mother left me at the hospital, hours after giving birth. No name, no note. Just me in a bassinet with a heart murmur and a broken wrist. They told me it happens sometimes. Some women aren't ready, they'd say, like that made it better. Like that made the hole in my chest any smaller. I spent my childhood inside the gray walls of St. Marlowe's Home for Girls where birthday parties were paper-thin and hope was rationed. I never got adopted. Not once. Never even shortlisted. Too sickly, too quiet. Damaged goods, one of the older girls whispered when she thought I couldn't hear. But I didn't cry. I learned early, tears don't fix anything. They just make you easier to drown. At 17, I got a nosebleed that wouldn't stop. I thought it was nothing, dehydration, maybe stress. But it was leukemia. Acute myeloid. Aggressive. Deadly. The kind of diagnosis that makes your world collapse in a single syllable. The doctors started me on chemo fast. My body went to war with itself. I lost my hair, then my strength, then my sense of time. Weeks melted. I forgot what sunlight felt like. I should have been alone. But then they came. A man and a woman showed up at my hospital door like ghosts stepping out of a fog. Isla, the woman asked, voice cracking like old wood. I think, we're your parents. Time didn't stop, it shattered. They introduced themselves as Marcus and Delilah Rennick. Said they'd been young, scared, stupid. That giving me up was the biggest regret of their lives. They wept like grief was something they'd earned. And I wanted to believe them. God, I needed to believe them. They brought flowers. Stories. Old photographs, me as a baby, them as teenagers. We talked for hours. They told me I looked like her. I laughed like him. We cried together. They said they'd make it up to me. We're here now, Delilah whispered one night, brushing my hair behind my ear. We're never leaving again. I almost felt whole. Almost. And then one evening, when the lights in my room buzzed and my skin ached from the inside out, a nurse pulled me aside. They requested the bone marrow registry, she said, glancing over her shoulder. For someone named Aiden Rennick. I blinked. Who's Aiden? She paused. Their son. Your brother. I didn't know I had a brother. I confronted Delilah the next day. Her face crumpled like wet paper. He's only 8, she whispered. He's dying, Isla. He has a rare blood disorder. You're a match. You're his only chance. They never said it outright, but the truth burned between their words. They didn't come back for me. They came back for him. I should have screamed. I should have told them to rot in hell. But I didn't. Because I was desperate. Because I still hoped they loved me, maybe not fully, maybe not perfectly, but enough to stay. I signed the papers. I donated my marrow. The surgery wrecked me, but I clung to the idea that this would change everything. We'd be a family. We'd heal together. We'd begin again. But 3 days after the transplant, they vanished. No goodbye. No phone call. Not even a damn text. The hospital called every number they left. Disconnected. Their apartment? Emptied. No forwarding address. They used me. Carved me open to save him, then threw me back into the dark. I spent 2 weeks in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, trying not to exist. And then came the final blow. My leukemia was back. Worse than before. Resistant. Vicious. Unforgiving. I laughed. The kind of laugh that tastes like blood. It felt like the universe was in on the joke. I thought about giving up. I thought about letting the sickness win. But then I remembered her voice, Delilah's voice, so soft, so sweet, lying through her perfect white teeth. We're never leaving again. And that's when something inside me snapped. The kind of snap that doesn't make noise. The kind that rewrites your soul. I wasn't going to die in a hospital bed forgotten. No. If I was going to die, I'd burn the lies with me. I'd make them watch. I'd make them feel it. They wanted a donor. They didn't realize they created a weapon. And I was just getting started. I didn't eat for 3 days. Not out of some dramatic hunger strike. I just couldn't feel anything. Not hunger. Not pain. Not fear. I floated above my body like I was watching a stranger rot from the inside. But then something clicked. It happened when a nurse dropped a tray. The crash startled me. And for the first time in weeks, I felt anger. Not sadness. Not despair. Pure, concentrated rage. It felt good. Felt alive. I asked the nurse for a mirror. She hesitated. I could see the pity in her eyes, but she brought it anyway. What I saw wasn't me. Sunken cheeks. Hollow eyes. No hair. Skin like parchment stretched too tight. But the eyes were awake. For the first time, they looked like they belonged to someone dangerous. And that's when I started planning. I checked myself out of the hospital 2 weeks later. The doctors begged me to stay, said the relapse was spreading fast. But I'd made peace with the facts. I had maybe 6 months. 9 if the stars aligned. That's not a death sentence. That's a deadline. So I got to work. First, I changed my name legally to Isla Rennick. Their last name. The one they erased me with. Then I went to the public library and learned everything I could about them. Turns out people like Marcus and Delilah don't hide, they perform. Instagram perfect life. Photos of Aiden smiling in designer clothes. Beach vacations. Goddamn golden retriever named Monty. They moved to Glasswell, a pristine little suburb 2 states over, the kind with cobblestone paths and organic everything. Marcus was a financial advisor. Delilah ran a wellness brand online. I watched their vlogs. Read their captions. You'd never guess they threw away their firstborn twice. And here's the worst part. Aiden recovered. Thriving. Healthy. Miracle boy, they called him. Guess I was good for something. Now revenge isn't like it is in the movies. There's no dramatic montage. No convenient villain speech. It's slow. Methodical. Surgical. Like chemo for your soul. So I found an old burner phone and made a fake profile under the name Jade. Built an identity, 29, nutritionist, moved to Glasswell recently. Then I followed Delilah online. I studied her habits. Her route. Her gym. Her cafe. I learned her schedule down to the hour. And then I accidentally bumped into her at a coffee shop. Sorry. I laughed, spilling a bit of oat milk on her jacket. She gave a tight smile, clearly annoyed. It's fine, she said, brushing it off. You're Delilah, right? I follow your brand online. That cracked her armor. Within minutes, she was glowing. People like her feed on admiration. Within days, we were grabbing smoothies together. She never recognized me. I was 20 now, different hair, different voice, different posture. Sickness had rebuilt my face. Pain had rewritten my soul. She thought I was just another fan. Oh, Delilah. If only you knew. The more I got close, the more I realized she didn't regret what she did. She'd erased me from her story. No mention of a daughter. Not even a whisper. I was a ghost. But I wasn't here to haunt. I was here to hunt. And that's when I met him, her husband. Marcus. He showed up halfway through a lunch we were having. Suave. Fake polite. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. He shook my hand. Held it a second too long. Jade, huh? Pretty name. The way he looked at me made my skin crawl. But I smiled back. I needed him to trust me. Over the next month, I tightened the noose. I became Jade, their new friend. I met Aiden. Saw him up close. Healthy. Playful. I should have hated him, but I didn't. He was innocent. Just like I was. A pawn in their twisted game. But Marcus and Delilah? They were parasites. And I was the cure. I started dropping hints. Letting Marcus accidentally find my phone unlocked with messages open. Flirty ones. Cryptic ones. He took the bait like a starving rat. Delilah was too obsessed with herself to notice. One night, Marcus invited me to meet him at his office after hours. He poured whiskey, asked questions he had no business asking. I gave him just enough, a hand on the shoulder, a laugh, a whisper. But when he leaned in to kiss me, I pulled away. You're married, I said, pretending to be shocked. You came here, he replied. Don't act innocent. God. He was worse than I thought. And that's when the idea hit me. A way to split them from the inside. I'd seduce Marcus just enough. Plant the seeds of guilt, of paranoia. Make Delilah suspicious. Make Marcus nervous. Make them turn on each other. Because I didn't want to kill them. No. I wanted them to bleed. The same way I did. Slow. Invisible. From the inside out. But just as everything was falling into place, something unexpected happened. I got a call from the hospital. Aiden had been readmitted. Complications. The transplant was failing. And they needed me again. I stared at the hospital message for hours. Aiden's liver is failing. Immediate donor needed. You're the closest match. They didn't even say my name. Just you. I should have laughed. Or screamed. Instead, I just sat there in the dark, phone glowing like a curse in my palm. They needed me. Again. The same people who left me to rot were now begging for my blood to keep their picture-perfect life alive. But this time, I wasn't a scared child. This time, I held the knife. I walked into Glasswell Regional like a ghost. They hadn't seen me since the transplant. Not as me anyway. Delilah was pacing in the lobby when I entered. She turned, desperate, face pale. Jade? Thank God. I cut her off. My name is Isla. Isla Rennick. Ring a bell? She froze. Eyes flickering, brain fumbling through old memories she tried to bury. You can't be. I am. I stepped closer. The daughter you threw away. The one who gave you a miracle and got forgotten like trash. Marcus appeared behind her, holding coffee cups like some sitcom dad. He looked at me. Blinked. Recognition hit him slower than it should have. You're her. His voice cracked. Yeah. And now your miracle boy is dying again. And you're hoping I'll be stupid enough to save him. Again. We moved to a private room. They begged? Delilah cried, said she was young and scared back then. Marcus blamed the doctors. Society. Stress. They twisted themselves into knots trying to rewrite history. But I remembered everything. The isolation. The silence. The betrayal that hollowed me out like radiation. Now they wanted mercy. I could have walked out. Could have let Aiden fade the way they let me fade. But I didn't. Because Aiden wasn't them. He was innocent. Just like I was. I agreed. But under my terms. I want the truth, I said. On camera. They stared at me. I want a recorded statement from both of you, explaining exactly what you did to me. The truth. No edits. No PR spin. They resisted. Argued. Said it would ruin their lives. Good, I said. You ruined mine. Marcus tried to negotiate. Delilah tried to guilt me. But I held the only currency that mattered, a liver that matched. In the end, they gave in. They recorded the confession. Told the camera how they abandoned me after the diagnosis. How they manipulated the system. How they adopted Aiden to save him and discarded me like expired medicine. I sent the video to 3 trusted contacts with a simple message. Release this if I die. Then I signed the hospital forms. The surgery was brutal. They said the risks were higher this time. My body weaker. My margins thinner. But I survived. Barely. They didn't let me see Aiden post-op. Too risky, the doctor said. More like too awkward. But I didn't care about thank yous. I didn't do it for them. A week later, I was discharged. Alone. No ride. No flowers. I limped out the door with my 4 bruises and a soul made of scar tissue. I thought that would be the end of it. That they'd go back to pretending I never existed. I was wrong. A week later, a black SUV pulled up outside the motel I was crashing in. Marcus stepped out. I need to talk, he said. There was something in his voice I didn't recognize. Not arrogance. Not charm. Desperation. We sat in the back booth of a rundown diner. He ordered coffee. I didn't touch mine. What do you want, Marcus? He didn't answer at first. Just looked at me. Then he slid a flash drive across the table. It's everything. Financials. Accounts. Secrets. Everything Delilah's been hiding. I frowned. Why? She's planning to leave. Take Aiden. Move the business offshore. Cut me out. I stared at him. And you think I care? You should. She's hiding millions. Money she made using your name, your story. Wellness campaigns about hope, all built on your tragedy. I didn't believe him. Until I saw the files. There it was, a trail of fake testimonials, forged donation receipts, offshore accounts. They turned my pain into profit. Delilah was never scared. She was smart. She built an empire on my bones. And now she was getting ready to vanish. That's when Marcus leaned in. We can take her down. Together. I laughed in his face. You used me. Lied to me. Let me rot. Why would I trust you? He didn't blink. Because I have nothing left to lose. And suddenly I saw it. The cracks in his mask. The man who once had everything, now afraid of losing the only thing that made him feel powerful. Delilah had become the monster even Marcus couldn't control. And I had a choice. Walk away, or finish what I started. Not just revenge. Ruin. Of all of them. So I leaned forward. Smiled cold. Let's burn her down. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt. That part of me died on the operating table. I couldn't sleep because I was planning. Mapping every lie, every dollar, every speech Delilah ever gave in my name. Marcus passed out on the motel couch after one too many whiskeys. He looked pathetic. A fallen king choking on the crown he stole. But I needed him. For now. By morning we had a plan. Delilah's company, Eat Impulse Wellness, was built on two things: fake redemption stories and the cult of family. She hosted retreats for grieving parents, filmed glossy campaigns about surviving loss, spun tales about her first daughter who died so others could live. That first daughter was me. Alive. Scarred. Forgotten. And she sold me like a parable. Step 1, get inside. Marcus still had access to the HQ. Emergency board override, he said. She made me sign one when we got married. Thought I was a threat. He smiled bitter. She had no idea. The place was a fortress, all white walls and fake greenery. Smelled like lavender and rot. I wore a hoodie. Ball cap. Kept my head low. No one questioned Marcus. They still thought he mattered. We broke into her server room that night. Copied everything. Videos, emails, medical files, even the falsified death certificate with my name. She buried me legally. Erased my existence to make herself a saint. That's when I found it. A hidden folder, password protected. Marcus cracked it. Inside, a series of edited videos. Interviews. Emotional breakdowns. All of them about me, spliced, manipulated. In one, Delilah sobbed on camera. Losing her was the hardest thing I've ever survived. Except I wasn't dead. I was in a group home, screaming for a mother who never looked back. In another clip, she said, "We tried everything. But her cancer was too advanced." Cancer? I never had cancer. It was autoimmune hepatitis. Treatable. Manageable. But cancer looked better in a campaign. It sold more. That's when something inside me snapped. Not broke. Snapped. I wasn't going to expose her. I was going to drag her into the light and watch her burn. Step 2, bait. We leaked the confession video to a small, anonymous blog. Just a taste. Enough to stir whispers in Eat Impulse investor circles. Enough to make her nervous. We staged a phony interview request under a fake name from a journalist who found new evidence about her past. She bit. Agreed to meet the reporter in a luxury suite uptown. Private. Secluded. Perfect. Marcus and I set up cameras in the suite. Hidden mics. Double audio backups. I even rigged the walls with echo chambers to trap every sound. I'd become a ghost again. But this time they'd hear me scream. She arrived wearing white. Of course she did. I watched her through the live feed, brushing imaginary lint from her shoulder, checking her lipstick. Like she was preparing for a TED Talk. She sat. Waited. Smiled politely when the journalist, really just an actor, walked in. And then I walked out of the shadows. Her face went paper white. "You," she hissed. "How are you?" "Alive?" I said. You'd be surprised how often I ask myself that. She stood, ready to leave. "Sit," I said. And she did. Because she saw what I was holding. The flash drive. The files. The nuclear bomb. "What do you want?" she asked. I looked her dead in the eye. "I want you to confess." On camera. Again. But this time, you name names. You tell the world what you did. Who funded you? How you spun trauma into product. She crossed her arms. "You think this'll ruin me? I've survived worse." I leaned forward. "I don't want to ruin you, Delilah. I want to make you irrelevant." She smirked. "You're still that bitter little girl. Still desperate for love. You'll never win, Isla. You're not strong enough." That's when I smiled. And I played the clip. Not of her. Of Aiden. His voice, barely awake, post-surgery, asking the nurse, "Can I meet her? The woman who saved me." Her face crumpled. "You didn't even let him see me," I whispered. "You stole everything. And still called yourself mother." For the first time, she had no words. Just breathless silence. And in that silence, I hit record. She cracked. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe fear. Or maybe she finally saw the end of her illusion. She confessed again. This time with names. Every lie. Every donor scam. Every silenced whistleblower. We got it all. I sent the files out the same night. 3 trusted journalists, a class action lawyer, and Aiden's doctor. Then I did the one thing she'd never expect. I walked away. Marcus tried to follow me outside. "What now?" he asked. "Where do we go from here?" I turned. "We don't go anywhere, Marcus. You're part of the wreckage." He looked confused. Then I handed him the second flash drive. The one with his name all over it. Bank fraud. Embezzlement. Tax evasion. He stammered. "I helped you. And you helped destroy me. Consider this balance." That night, I stood on a rooftop overlooking the city she once owned. Below, phones buzzed with breaking news. Articles. Leaks. Videos. Delilah Hartley. Exposed. Eat impulse. Crumbling. Donors demanding refunds. Lawsuits lined up like dominoes. The empire she built on my suffering was collapsing. And all I felt was quiet. Not peace. Not joy. Just quiet. But that was enough. Until I got the call. From Aiden. His voice was calm. Too calm. I saw the videos, he said. I know everything now. My throat clenched. I'm sorry you found out like that, I whispered. He paused. Don't be. I'm not calling to hate you. I'm calling because I need to know something. I waited. He asked. Were you ever going to tell me the truth? Or was revenge all that mattered? His voice echoed in my ears long after the call ended. Were you ever going to tell me the truth? Or was revenge all that mattered? Aiden didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just asked. And that made it worse. Because I didn't have an answer. I sat in the motel bathtub with my knees pulled to my chest. The water ran cold. My phone screen lit up with headlines, messages, calls from journalists, lawyers, strangers. But I wasn't reading any of them. I was staring at one message. From Aiden. Just 2 words. Call me. The revenge was over. Delilah Hartley was finished. Her investors fled. Her followers turned on her. 3 class action lawsuits dropped the same week. Marcus predictably tried to run. Got picked up by the FBI 2 states over with a suitcase full of burner phones and Eat Impulse money. The media fed on the story like vultures. Wellness Queen lied about daughter's death. Cancer Live funded lavish empire. Survivor speaks, I was her product. Everyone wanted to talk to me. But I said nothing. Because I wasn't sure who I was anymore. A week later, I finally called Aiden back. He answered on the first ring. Hi, I said, my voice low. He was quiet. Then, you okay? I laughed. It cracked in my throat. No. Another pause. Me neither, he said. We talked. For hours. Not about the lawsuits. Not about her. About us. I told him what happened. How I'd woken up in that hospital. How they told me she'd signed the paperwork to send me away. How no one ever visited. How I died that day even if my heart kept beating. I told him everything. And at the end he said something I didn't expect. I still want to meet you. When I got to the coffee shop, I almost turned around. He was sitting by the window, sipping tea, watching the rain. He looked like her, but softer, sadder, more real. He stood when he saw me. Neither of us moved for a second. Then he hugged me. And I froze. Not because I didn't want it, but because it had been so long since someone touched me without needing anything back. I didn't cry. He did. I didn't know, he said. I swear I didn't know. I know, I whispered. You were just the story. Like me. He nodded. Then he said, she's pressing charges. I blinked. For what? For releasing confidential medical data. For entrapment. Defamation. Whatever she can spin. I almost laughed. Of course she is. The trial came fast. Too fast. Delilah limped into court with dark sunglasses and a walking cane. Theatrics always. She claimed I had staged everything. That Marcus hacked her files. That I was mentally unstable and had a history of deception. But the files spoke louder. The fake death cert. The charity scams. The voice memos. And then the cherry on top, her own confession. Recorded. Unedited. Clear. Still, she didn't flinch. Not once. Until Aiden took the stand. He looked right at her and said, she sold me a story about a sister I could never meet. She told me she held my hand on the operating table. But it was a lie. Everything was a lie. And I'm done pretending it didn't destroy us both. That cracked her. Just a little. Enough. They found her guilty of multiple counts. Fraud. Perjury. Wire transfers linked to donor scams. She won't do real-time, white-collar prison probably. A book deal might even follow. America loves a comeback. But no one's listening anymore. Her followers scattered. Eat Impulse filed for bankruptcy. All that's left of her empire is ash. And me. Aiden and I sat on a bench outside the courthouse. He reached into his coat and handed me a small box. Inside, a key. What's this? I asked. He shrugged. My old apartment. I moved. Thought maybe you could use a place that isn't a motel. I stared at him. You don't owe me anything. He smiled. I know. But maybe I want to. We talk sometimes. Not every day. We're still figuring out what sister even means when you were born in the same house but raised in different lives. But there's something there. Not hope. Something quieter. Something that breathes. As for me, I left the city. I bought a little place near Lake Elowin, the one I used to dream about when the nurses let me look at travel books. It's quiet here. Still, I volunteer sometimes. Nothing big. Just helping women who got lost in systems like I did. Sometimes they ask what happened to my family. I tell them the truth. They buried me, so I buried them back. One night, Aiden came to visit. We sat by the lake, watching the wind move across the water. He asked, "Do you ever miss her?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about her laugh, her perfume, her hand in my hair when I was 5. And I said, "I miss the mother I imagined. The one she pretended to be." He nodded. Then he asked the question I dreaded most. "Would you do it again?" I looked at him. At the soft boy who'd been a weapon in her hands. At the man trying to unlearn every lie we'd been fed. And I whispered, "Yes, but I'd leave a note the second time. Because this wasn't just revenge. It was resurrection. They tried to erase me, but I came back. Not as who I was. As who I chose to be."